Alright, Lava, I'm going to show you a couple things real quick so you can get started. So when you very first open up the level, this is all you see. You're going to want to go up here and type in sky and get skylight, put that in the level. I don't know why they don't put that in there, but it's important for the lighting because it comes from the surrounding environment. See how that's like bluish right there? It wouldn't be there if I didn't have that in. So when you're building a level, you want to use the BSP, and that is in geometry. Mostly you want to use this and edit this. A box. Oops. Okay, so there's this mode here. You're going to want to make a shortcut, but you got to go to this mode here to edit. And you have these options. First thing I should say is if you hold Control and Alt, you can select multiple verts. You can click the verts, you can click the edges, or you can click the faces, which all do different stuff depending on what you're doing. Before I explain this, I'll go through these over here real quick. So these three modes is for moving, rotation, or scaling, which is spacebar I'm hitting right there. This is for if it's world or local coordinates. Local would be like, say if I spin this way, and then I want to move this face kind of this diagonal direction, the way it's facing. Well, I can't do that in world mode, but if I go to local, then it will. Most of the time you're on world though, because you want to keep things on the grid because it makes life much easier. So I would say try to keep things on the 50 grid, and it makes it much easier to work with diagonal pieces. Because see, like if I did that, I gotta figure out how to get that to match up with this, and then I gotta put this on a really low grid. And see how I'm struggling already? And I have to take more pieces and align them to this. So it gets really messy. You want to try and keep things like, 45-degree angles and keep things on the 50 grid, which is this right here. If you turn this off, it lets you go even further off the grid to like the decimal point. You'll never use that. Same for this, keep those on. The only exception is scaling. So this is moving, rotating, scaling. Scaling is kind of an eyeball thing, so you want it to be off the snapping, so you can do this. But most of the time you never scale either, not with BSP. It's more of something for a mesh. And a mesh is something that's meant to be put into a 3D modeling program and then pulled back into the editor. So it lets you make more complicated shapes easy. Like the very first piece that comes in the level is a mesh, and that's why it looks like this with this outline. And it's kind of weird where I can't edit it. You can't edit meshes inside of the Unreal editor, at least not in this version. The only thing you can really do is scale them or rotate them. So that's all that. The camera speed, obviously for panning around. You should know if you're holding right click and then using WASD to look around, and Q and E go down and up. If you're holding right click like I am now, you can do mouse wheel down or up to fly faster or slower, on top of whatever this default setting is, which generally you just leave it at 4. So that's all of those. And now back to the editing. Oops. You've got create. That's for if you need to make a face. So let me delete, which deletes a face when you have it clicked. And then when you create, You have to click them clockwise and then hit create. If you don't do it clockwise, it could do something weird like make two triangles or make one triangle facing inward and outward. It can just get messed up. Sometimes you can fix an issue like that with flip. That's what it's for, is to get rid of inwards facing polygons because they should all be facing out. Split is for when you have the edge selected. You can actually split it so you can make something more complex. Triangulate makes it like it would be. This is basically how the engine sees it at the end of the day. Everything has to be a triangle, but things can be polygons for you to work on, which makes life easier. So, as far as I know, there's nothing I've ever run into where I'm like needing to use triangulate, so I want to use this. Optimize is to explain the brush in the least possible terms. So I could click this and go back to the regular square, because it'll figure out that this is the optimal way to describe this. One thing you want to avoid is having two overlapping points. Usually where I do that is when I make a ramp real quick like this. So there's still points down there on top of each other. So you want to go out of this menu, back in, and then you'll be able to see optimize and fix that. Otherwise, it's just, if you make some crazy brush, you can optimize and hope it fixes the extra edges and stuff. The last two, turn and weld. So instead of just merging 2 points together the hacky way like I just showed you and using optimize, you're supposed to use weld. So like you click a point and then control click another point or multiple points and hit weld, and they all go to that first point. So that's the other way to do it. But obviously, welding that to that and that to that takes some extra time. Turn, the only way or purpose I've ever had for it is this situation. See this edge? This edge could go the other way, and it's going to change the outcome. See, like it's going this way. It's going this way. If I turn it, it's going this way. That's all that does. Brush clip is for when you're in 2D. You have to hit middle mouse and go click middle mouse on the 2D and then hit space and apply, and it cuts it off, whichever side the red line's on, unless you hit flip normal, then it goes the other way. If you hit split, it tries to split in half, but sometimes it gets screwed up, so you gotta be careful about that. Try not to use split too much. Extrude is for, if I click a face, I hit extrude, I pulled out, it just makes extra faces. Instead of doing that though, I would recommend for building a level that you just use extra actors. Like you make another box and another box. Oh, hold Alt and drag, and you'll make an extra one. So I would make separate boxes to describe the shape, because if you need to edit it further, you'll find this is much easier. With this, you'll have to use brush clip, and you can run into glitchiness like I just explained. Pen, that's for if you're in a 2D port. Any of these, you have to leave these defaults on and say I'm in the top down. I hit space on the first point I did it, and it just makes the shape whatever it is. It's kind of a bad example here. There. Also, you can make a 2D shape by doing this exact setup. And I'm going to want to show you this on the left. Here. Something weird. So what's the point of this? This lets you use lathe. You have that clicked, it unghosts this. So then you have to go back to a 2D port, and if you hold Alt and click the pivot and move it somewhere, and then save it, which is going to be on the menu, it's right here. It says offset, and then you hit apply, and then you see it like lathes this circular shape. Or cylindrical shape, I mean. Alright, so that's all those controls. The last thing is properties. So these three, location, rotation, scale, you can type in numbers. It's related to this stuff I just told you about. Brush type, additive, subtractive. If it's a subtractive, it cuts away from BSP already in the level. It's additive, goes back in. How it decides, it's all just ordering. So if you make this first, and then make this second, then this overrides this. If you make this third, then this overrides this and this, regardless of, if this is a subtractive. There you go. You can manipulate this a little bit. If you go to ordering, I can set this to last, and then this overrides everything. If I set the first, it overrides nothing. What sucks is you usually need something in the middle, so when your map gets really complicated with trying to create something and you get lots of overlaps, like usually I'll get subtractives when I'm trying to like clear out an area and like remake it, and it gets confusing really quickly when you have a whole lot of overlap. There's one exception though. If you do semi-solid, what this means is it takes it out of the brush order. So generally this is for like pillars and stuff. Say this is a big pillar. And then say I make another subtractive. It's not going to do anything to it because it's out of the brush ordering. So you can basically consider this to be like a permanent additive brush that you can pull out of the stack of BSP order. Non-solid is basically if you're making like a window, you can put a glass texture on it and it'll be transparent or semi-transparent. Align brush vertices will put the vertices on the grid. Like when you drag stuff in, you want this to be 50. Let's say I accidentally put it on 1. It's going to let me drag it wherever. But if I want to quickly get on the 50, say align, there you go. Create static mesh would be to make a complicated mesh, which you won't need to worry about. Polygons, never use this. And that's all 5 of those. Hollow and tessellated you don't have to worry about either. And there's a few other special types of brushes you can make. As far as these settings go, you wouldn't really use it with a box, because in the box you can just, come in here and drag stuff out, make whatever you need to make. But if you had something like a cone, or like a cylinder or a stair, you're going to want to use these settings to do whatever you want to do. And you got to be careful because these are like the most complex shapes you can get from BSP. But once they're made, if you try to like take pieces of them out and stuff and make some, rotate you do some fancy stuff to them, and then you want to change like the smallest thing, like, oh, this has to be a little bit longer. Well, you can't do that, because if you do, it's going to remake the entire brush. So it has limits as to how useful these are. So that explains that section. And even all this stuff can be subtractive too. Which that's something that lathe is really good for, is to make like an elbow of like a basement room, like how Quest does with the curved sides and stuff. Material is whatever you want for the surface of the object. So let's say I put this in here, concrete. It'll apply to whatever surface is selected. You can select the whole surface and do it like that. You can also, if you have it selected, there's hotkeys like hitting Alt and then clicking, or hitting like Shift B and then hitting the apply button to do everything, or even like Shift S, selecting everything. Oh, if you hit optimize too, it takes off the texture, so that's something to know. Sets it back to default. Next section, select. It's just some ways to select the texturing, like matching material all over the level. I use that one a lot. Matching brush, like select the whole brush, Shift B. That's a very useful one. The rest of these, don't really worry about. Don't use them. Alignment is how the texture is aligned, because it can look funky and repeat. The most common is if you use a cylinder, or like you can see it on the stair too. Like, see how it's repeating? So you might have to like say make planar or planar, and it'll do that. Clean, don't have to worry about that. Never use it. Pan is to like fine tune the how it's on the texture. It's kind of hard to see through the highlight. Can't remember how to do it without that highlight on. Oh, game mode. Hit G key. It's a big one. You can rotate it even, like 45 degrees. You can make it tiny, really tiny texture. You can like flip it like you would a picture, because the texture is just a 2D picture. Light map resolution is for like lighting quality on the surface. If it's something complicated, like you have like a spotlight shining directly on it or something, you might need to be more detailed, which is actually a lower number, like 16 or even 8. Don't worry about these settings, and that's pretty much it. There's an actor section, which is like something that all actors, like this is an actor, this is an actor. Basically everything is an actor. There's an actor section though, where you can do some more things that are like general settings. Like you can convert a BSP into a lot of different things, like blocking volumes and stuff. You'll only see this if you're in geometry mode, unless you have a certain thing on, like collision. I would recommend leaving this on collision, and then hit game mode, G key. Then you can see all your edges and stuff. This is super useful to see where things are. Like, I can see that there's a brush here, even though part of it has been cut away by well, let me see. Yeah, I can see that part of this has been cut away by a subtractive brush, I believe. Yeah, there's a subtractive brush on top of it that we couldn't see. Now you can. So that helps you to see everything that's hidden and whatnot. Um, you can set special collision properties. That's more for meshes, really. So you don't have to worry about that. All this actor stuff, don't have to really worry about it for now. Like, I'd never use any of this stuff, basically. That's pretty much it for BSP. If you want bots to test with, you gotta go and type in Navmesh bounds volume, and you select it, put it in your level. Oops, it went way over there for some reason. And then drag it through the level like that. And then go to build. You do a build before you play test or share your map or anything like that to make sure everything is good to go. And it makes sure all the geometry is where it's supposed to be. And you have to hit build paths after that for the navigation of the bots. Once you build paths, the bots will work as long as you have player start. And the player start you want, there's two of them. You want the one that says UT player start when you highlight it. Once you have that in, and bad size means it's in the floor or something. So you pull it up, hit end key, and it attaches. Once you have all that set up, the bots will work. Another thing I just thought of is you probably don't have update BSP on, which you're going to want. Just go in editing and you say, type in BSP up here, update automatically. You want this on, and then whenever you drag brushes and stuff, it'll update all the brushing on the level. If you don't have this on, when you move something, you'll see something like, even if it's an additive brush, you'll see an outline like this, and then you'll see the actual piece back where it was when you move stuff until you hit build. Unless you do the update BSP automatically, and then whenever you do anything, basically it'll sync up automatically. Don't worry about lighting or any of that. I would cheat with the skylight and set it to mobile or movable. As far as why, don't worry about it. It just adds a lot of light to the level, and then you can increase the intensity. And then if you get far enough to make a level, you can worry about that and explain it later as to how to do it properly. And as far as mobility settings go, you're not going to have to worry about it for BSP. For all the other actors, they tend to have that setting for mobility. Just leave it where it is for now. Just try to make the level. So you're going to be worried about putting in player starts and blocking volumes for the top of the level, just basic stuff like that. And what else? What else? And there's so much to go over. Oh, if you're testing the level, go over to play and I always do new editor window, but whatever you want to do. And you can go exactly to the spot you're at in the camera if you do current camera location. Dedicated server, this is for like if you were to try to emulate what it's like running a real server. That's important if you're doing something like coding a blueprint. So you won't use this. You could say number of players like 2 and then control 2 windows, which is like this. So that's possible. Oh, another really important thing I would say to do is to use skeletal mesh. And use this blue guy, drag him in, and sound scale 1.1 because that's the UT scale now. If you don't believe me, just look at that. Well, he's not attached to the floor all the way. You gotta hit Control End for this guy. It's a different kind of attached to floor. There. And I would take this guy and drag him over the level. Oh, this first piece that you see in the level is a mesh, if I didn't say that already. I can scale that up so we can walk on it. This will help you see the scale of your map a lot easier if you put some dudes around it. So when you're all done, you think you're done, you want to go in the world settings, type a title, and game quest, name, something, some lore to describe it, and then you want to put a screenshot, which is like you go here, high resolution screenshot. You want to hit G key to turn off all the special stuff and try to get rid of all the whatever, because it'll screenshot whatever's actually in the viewport. And when you screenshot it, get something like this. And you have to drag that in the content browser and it'll import it. And then you can select it and put it in here as a texture. And that's for like when you vote the level. Game mode, that remains none. You want to kill Z, something somewhere below the level. It's a red line when you have it set. So like say a -1000. You can see it now right there. That would automatically kill people that get out of the map so they don't just fly forever. It's a good thing to have set. That's pretty much it for the basic settings, and then you would share this level when you're all done with that. And when you share this level, it cooks for a while, and then it dumps it into basically here, whatever your username is. And normally when you download stuff, it goes in here, download packs. But this goes into my content, which loads it all the same. This is where it goes. So whatever you cook, I would recommend putting it in your downloaded packs before you share it. Reason being is that it can take precedence over things you've downloaded if you keep it in my content, because it can't be overwritten if you put it in here where it cooks. And that's pretty much it. You're ready to share it. If you want to look at it locally, once you have in either of these two folders, you would just open the map, just like you do open looking for something that's not there. If you want to open quest-k, the command for that is open em quest-k from the console inside the game, and it'll load up. So yeah, I guess that's everything for now. Just let me know if you have any questions.